Board meeting for January 12th, 2026. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up on our agenda is the acceptance and correction of minutes from the 12/22/25 public and non-public minutes.
I make a motion that we accept the 12/22/25 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any discussion, changes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Seeing none, motion carries. First thing I'm going to do this evening is welcome our new fire chief, if he'd come up. For those of you who don't know, our Sean Murray, our fire chief, retired at the end of December, and our new fire chief is Ben Selleck. So to Ben Selleck in the county of Hillsborough, town of Goffstown, whereas there is a vacancy in the office of fire chief in the said town, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform your duties of said office, we do hereby appoint you the said Benjamin Z. Selleck, fire chief of said town, and upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment certified of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers, perform the duties, and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. This given in our hands at the Town of Goffstown Select Board, the 22nd day of December, 2025. And Ben, would you repeat after me? I, and your name,
I, Ben Selleck,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
incumbent on me as a fire chief
incumbent upon me as the fire chief
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the rules and regulations,
agree to the rules and regulations,
Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
Constitution and law of the state of New Hampshire.
so help me God.
So help me God.
You're sworn in.
All right.
Thanks, Chief.
First one.
Okay, I have a couple of announcements. First up is a public hearing for the 2026 budget, New Hampshire RSA 32:25. The Goffstown Budget Committee will hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. on Thursday, January 15, 2026, in the Craig Heber Theater at the Goffstown High School, 27 Wallace Road, Goffstown, New Hampshire 03045. In accordance with the New Hampshire RSA 32:5, to receive input, public input on the 26 budgets for the town school and town water precinct and Grassmere Village water precinct. Snow date is on Tuesday, the January 20th. The Budget Committee will meet immediately following the conclusion of the public hearing to consider public input and discuss their recommendations for the annual warrants. Any person with a disability who wishes to attend this meeting and needs to be provided reasonable accommodation in order to participate, please call the Town Hall at 603-497-8990, extension 100, at least 72 hours in advance so arrangements can be made. Next, here's a public notice. This comes from the Goffstown Supervisors of the Checklist. Supervisors of the Checklist will be in session at the Town Hall downstairs, room 104, 16 Main Street, Goffstown, New Hampshire, on Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, from 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. This is the last day to register to vote until after the town and school deliberative sessions. No voter registration will take place at the deliberative session meeting. New voter registrations, as well as name, address, and party affiliation changes, can be made at this time with appropriate documents. New voters must bring proof of citizenship, date of birth, home address, and photo ID with them to register to vote. And that's under RSA 654:12. Any person with a disability who needs to be provided with a reasonable accommodation to participate, please call Town Hall at 603-497-8990, extension 100, at least 72 hours in advance so arrangements can be made. So a couple of housekeeping items taken care of there. Now we're going to go into public comment. Just to, before we get started, public comment is a 3-minute limit. So if you want to get up and speak, you have 3 minutes, and then you'll be asked to sit down, and so the next person can come up. So is there anybody here that wants to speak at the public comment? Go right ahead. I got numerous hands. So when you come up, please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Michael Gross, and I live at 61 Upaway Farm Road. I understand that the board is deciding which roads to include in a warrant article, and I'm here to speak briefly and submit a letter from my attorney for the board's awareness and for the public record as you consider that decision. I moved to Goffstown to start a family, and this is our year-round home. We have 2 young children, ages 1 and 4. We rely on this road daily, including in the winter, and just as other residents rely on other town-maintained roads. In 1994, the Select Board issued a letter affirming this road as a town road and showing it has long been recognized and maintained for public use, a fact that we relied on when purchasing our home. The road serves more than just my residence. It provides access to approximately 57 acres of unposted land that includes cleared, usable land. And has historically been used by residents for hunting and other recreational activities, particularly since the surrounding parcels are posted. I'm raising these points now in the hope that they can be considered thoughtfully at this stage. In addition to the legal issues raised in the letter, my concern is how changes in maintenance and access would affect the practical, real-world use by Goffstown residents. I respectfully ask the board to consider these issues before deciding whether to move forward with including this road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here's the letter.
That's fine, I can make copies.
Thank you.
Next, who else wanted to speak? There was other hands back there I saw. Don't all rush to the front now. Name and address, please.
Michael Boulay, 3 Martin Farm Road. Again, just like the gentleman before, in regards to the roads being maintained, the dirt roads, an article being brought up. I moved here 11 years ago. The access road to my driveway, the frontage of the property, the assessment of the property, if the road is going to, in the future, hypothetically, not being maintained, the value of the property, in my estimation, would go down. When you go to sell a property and you say, well, the road's not maintained by this town anymore, that brings the value of the property down. And my question is in regards to the assessment of the property that the town has. Will that assessment go down? Will the property taxes go down if the town decides not to maintain that road? The value of the property, my concern is going to go down. That's
All right,
my
thank you.
concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep things moving. My name is Russell Gotch, 389 Patty Hill Road. I have reservations about any development on any New Hampshire Class 6 road. My reference here is in the town of Swansea, where we also own a home. For decades, the town has effectively not allowed property development on Class 6 roads. That town has avoided the confusion and ambiguity that comes with the use of Class 6 roads that have been developed. Who is responsible for policing the road? What are the standards for maintenance? Not to mention that that town did not want to be in the position of not being able to provide life safety services to anyone in the town at any place where it would be reasonably expected. I will add that Swansea has seen Class 6 roads upgraded to Class 5 roads for the purposes of development, which is, of course, straightforward. Last July, state government created a law to force us to allow development of properties on Class 6 roads. The law said in part, with respect to Class 6 roads, municipalities shall not maintain the highway nor provide any services to any lot accessible by the highway. In addition, responsibility for such services falls solely on the applicant. I am opposed to this law. We, this town of Goffstown, should not be forced to allow development that is inconsistent with our objectives for rational land use. To retain appropriate control, my request here is that the town do either or both, discontinue Class 6 roads and/or join with other municipalities to seek to repeal this new law that imposes on our ability to plan our land use. Finally, I see that the Select Board agenda tonight includes work toward a warrant article that would convert certain Class 5 roads to Class 6 roads. I have two requests: that the Select Board should not proceed with this activity until a complete understanding of the costs to the town that are likely to arise, given that property owners are likely to seek relief, leading to litigation and settlements. For example, if I was an impacted property owner, I would surely not sign away my rights to town services such as fire and police. Secondly, a better understanding of the past, present, and potential use of such roads should be developed. For example, in at least one case I know of, the road includes mixed use and is heavily traveled during certain seasons. Thank you for the chance to speak.
Thank you. Thank you. Somebody else? Come right up. Anybody, please?
Hi, my name is Sally Seitz. I live at 11 South Mass Street. And we just found out about this on Friday, so I'm not nearly as prepared as other people that have spoken. But my concerns with the discontinuance of our road, Clint Rising Road, involve everything that has been mentioned, you know, decrease in property value, increase in responsibility of maintaining the road. You know, reading about the town's reason for discontinuing our road, reducing costs to the town in terms of mowing, in terms of tree cutting, grading. We've lived in the home on that road for 22 years, and we have never has the town had to mow any grass, done any tree cutting, done any grading of the road, done any pothole repair. None of those things have had to happen on that road. So the only cost to the town for that very short piece of road, there are 2 homes on it, is the plowing and the sanding. That's really it in the maintenance. My other concerns are there's drainage at the bottom of the road that would become, it looks like probably our responsibility maintaining drainage. I don't have equipment to maintain drainage. I've seen them out there unblocking that drain in the past. My biggest concern is over the years, the portion of sidewalk that is right in front of our house actually bows out into the road. As traffic has increased, traffic bumps into that road, trucks hit that, not the road, I'm sorry, they hit the sidewalk. The sidewalk is level with the road, and trucks and cars hit it continuously as they're distracted coming around the bend. I've noticed many children and families using the public road in front of the home to avoid that portion of sidewalk. If that were to become a private road, I would have to post it private property. And I wouldn't want liability for people using that piece of private road, so they would be down on the sidewalk, which really, if you really look at it, has become unsafe, and I think a lot of people are recognizing it as unsafe. That's about what I
thank you.
have. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, I found out yesterday, so I'm not prepared either.
Name and address?
Certainly, Frank Lamparelli, 15 Saunders Road. My issue is a little bit different than everybody else's. My understanding is the pavement is going to go on beyond my house, so I'm not as impacted as everybody else. My concern is the utilities that are 100 to 200 yards up the road, that the utilities pass through the woods from the Devon Farm over to the other part of Saunders where the turnaround is. And we lose power out there frequently. As you can imagine, I do have a generator, we deal with all of that. I can only imagine if that road is not maintained, what that will look like. With Eversource not having access to the utilities to fix them. If 88 Saunders would be responsible, who's an out-of-state person, for that being their driveway, I can't imagine that that would be great for the 4 residents that remain on that paved part of the road that rely on that utility line to get services. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Come on, there's a lot of people out there. Somebody's got one. There we go. Name and address.
Good evening. My name is Daniel King, 31 Martin Farm Road. I'd like to start by thanking the DPW. We all see the hard work they do to keep our town moving, and it is truly appreciated. However, I'm here to express my deep frustration regarding the director's decision to stop maintenance on Martin Farm Road. My family has been a part of Goffstown for over a century. Since 2006, my grandmother, uncle, neighbors, and parents have all entered into significant conservation projects. We didn't look for the highest bidder. We chose to preserve the land because it was the right thing for Goffstown. Our actions mirror the town's own master plan to preserve agricultural soils and enhance Goffstown's rural atmosphere. It also aligns with New Hampshire RSA 79-A, which states that preserving open space is in the clear public interest. Since I took over management of Clark Ridge Farm in 2013, I've worked to make our farm a public asset. We've opened our gates to UNH Cooperative Extension, New Hampshire Timberland Association, Granite State Grazers, and even local church services during COVID restrictions. We believe our community is strongest when our arms are open. But the farm is a labor of love. I work full-time as a teacher, and the farm operates on a razor-thin margin. Discontinuing road maintenance isn't just a minor convenience. It is a direct financial hardship that threatens the viability of this historic property. I can empathize with the pressure to reduce costs, but I have two major questions for the board. What are the metrics for determining a negligible public benefit? In public safety, I have 3 children under the age of 12 living at the end of that road. Does EMS know what the response times and equipment integrity will be on a compromised Class 6 road? Will my insurance provider even continue covering a home on an unmaintained road? I urge the Select Board to refrain from creating a warrant article on this matter. I ask the DPW Director to develop an open, transparent metric for these decisions before moving forward. Don't close the door on the residents and farms that work so hard to keep Goffstown's character alive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Britta King, and I live at 31 Martin Farm Road. That's my husband. I love Goffstown, and I'm a proud Goffstown resident. If you know me, you know that I try to convince everybody I know to move to Goffstown. There's a wonderful charm in this community that I love and adore. My story in Goffstown begins in 2012 when my husband and I moved from Chicago back to where he grew up here in Goffstown. Then, in 2013, my husband's uncle and longtime Goffstown resident of 31 Martin Farm Road, Jim Clark, died suddenly of a heart attack. My husband and I suddenly became the next stewards of Clark Ridge Farm. It was truly an overwhelming time in our lives. I'm still thankful that so many wonderful people of the community came out to support us. We were not sure what was going to happen, but through the support of our community, we were able to continue to farm Clark Ridge Farm, managing the conservation land off Martin Farm and Patty Hill Road. As the next stewards of the farm, my husband and I are working to continue to foster the wonderful community feel in this town. The public use of Martin Farm Road is not negligible. We are a working farm managing conservation land that the community can access. We have open houses for maple season, maybe you saw us on WMUR a couple years ago, provide grass-fed beef and pastured pork to local customers, work to sustainably manage a woodlot on which we pay timber tax to the town of Goffstown, receive shipments of feed, deliveries, load cattle, move farming equipment around. There's significant value in the maintenance of the road to the community, us, and our business. We would sustain significant damages if the town chooses no longer to maintain this road. The Select Board should carefully consider RSA 231-4, the petition for assessment of damages. Along with many of these other roads, there isn't just a home at the end of Martin Farm Road. There's a farm and a business as well. These damages sustained by the discontinuance of these 9 farm roads in town could be substantial. There's a few things. A hard road to travel has a summary for good discontinuance policies. The end of the first sentence states, "It is probably best to avoid complete discontinuance of highways unless absolutely necessary," page 64. Knowing the territory warns officials, be cautious of any request to discontinue a highway that involves land that could be subject to subdivision request. The loss in value could be substantial. I trust that the Select Board will come to fully understand the implications of moving forward with the discontinuance of farm roads and towns. I understand that budgets are tight, but it appears the town is discriminating against farms. There are other roads and towns with 1 or 2 residents on them. The town has established no basis for discontinuance. These old farms and farmland provide the rural charm of Goffstown and increase the desirability and value in town. If road discontinuance is the priority, the town should work to establish a basis for this. I do greatly appreciate the work that everyone does for the town. I know the Select Board will think about the long-term potential of these roads. In 1985, some of the roads that were up for debate were roads like Lynchville Park, Riverview Park, and Dumont Park. These roads have now been developed with multiple houses on them, which increases the tax basis. It is in the best interest of the town and the Director of Public Works to not move forward with this warrant article. Thank you so much for your time.
Anyone else?
My name is Max Blindo. I live at 97 Shirley Hill Road. I own Benedict Dairy, dairy farm up on Shirley Hill. We farm in Goffstown. We do it full-time. It's our livelihood. And two of these roads in question for discontinuation are farms we use for our farm business. So I want to share that so that we can think of them as not just someone's fancy driveway, but they're actually roads that are being used for farming. So Welch Lane is Paul Welch's house. He's the only house with a access on that road. But Jim Shirley's land surrounds and abuts it. We lease that land and farm it. Welch Lane is our main access for semi-truck delivery of hay. That's where we unload it. That's where we store our hay. So that's where we go when we go in the winter and feed cows several times a day. We go on that road, pick up the hay, drive it to another property, load it on a dump truck, drive it over to Dan's farm where we house steers and heifers. So all of that happens all winter. We move hay and feed about 60 cows on 2 farm properties. And the way that these farms are historically grown, farmers never put a house or a barn in the middle of a field far away from the road. They always put the house and the barn by the road. That's what they did in those 2 farm properties cases when those roads were the main road. Now they've since then become not the main road anymore, but that road is the access to the infrastructure that's historically grown. I imagine that the farmers that put the buildings there that we still use today were the people maintaining the roads back in the days for their road maintenance service that they provided. We continue that legacy as commercial farm operators. Those are not just someone's driveway, those are farm roads actively farmed by farmers.
Excellent, thank you much. Anybody else? Tim, how are you?
Timothy Kenny. I own the property at 17 South Mass Street, the French and Rising Funeral Home. Our section of road is very, very small. It services two buildings. It is used every day by people other than residents of those 2 houses or people who are coming to the funeral home. There are pedestrians, vehicles that use that road that are not coming to see us or to our neighbors. It was 7 years ago, we did enter into an agreement with the town where we paid for the paving of the road. We maintain the grass, the trees. So the only maintenance, the only cost to the town for the maintenance of this very short road is the plowing that it does during the winter. So I think from a strictly financial standpoint, if you look at, I'm not sure what the cost is to have that truck and driver plow that road, but the cost of that against the public use of the roadway and just the confusion that it's would cause if I just think the trade-off is worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come right up, sir. Name and address.
My name is Michael King. I live at 421 Patty Hill Road. I just have brief remarks. I actually lived on Martin Farm Road from 1982 to 1990. Had many discussions with, at that time, select person Bob Wheeler about the maintenance of that road. When we first lived there, the plow actually used to go beyond the house. Then we had discussions with Bob and it backed off a little bit. And then long after I moved away from there, and my brother-in-law, who's been referenced today, Jim Clark, was living there, he and my mother-in-law, Ruth Clark, entered into a formal turnaround agreement with the town of Goffstown. so that the actual maintenance only goes to the end of the straight portion of Martin Farm Road, no longer goes toward the house. And that was formalized, registered at the Registry of Deeds, and there was also a slope easement entered into at that time. I've read it 2 or 3 times. I'm not sure I'm entirely clear on what that does. The only other thing is, you've heard from my son Dan, who lives there now. My other son, Timothy, is a property owner on Upaway Farm Road. It is still an undeveloped lot. He intends to build on it someday. He's not here today because his family is currently living in North Carolina, has every intention of moving back to Goffstown and developing a house on that lot. And I think that if the Upaway Farm Road is discontinued, it would give him some challenges and probably a significant devaluation of that property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll conclude the public comment, and we'll move on to our next appointment, which is with the Village Bridge Ad Hoc Committee. And who's going to make that presentation?
I will.
And this is tab 4 here.
So my name is Paula Bedard. I live at 36 Shirley Park Road, and I'm the chairperson of the Village Ad Hoc Bridge Committee, Pedestrian Bridge Committee. And I know you have our status report in front of you. It's 3 pages. I won't read the whole thing unless you want me to, but I'm assuming you don't really need me to read it to you. But I would like to point out, obviously, it just starts out with the list of the committee members. The next section is just a little bit of background about the committee. On page 2, it's a review of the status of the TAP grant, TAP, Transportation Alternative Program grant, that we did not win this year. We were not awarded the money. And at the end, under our recommendations, we're asking for endorsement from the Select Board for this committee to continue so that we may apply again in 2028 for the next round of TAP grants or other grants that may be available at that time, like CMAQ or SS4A, which is Safe Streets for All. So there's really a slew of grant opportunities that we would like to continue to apply for when they become eligible and available for applications. Obviously, if you have any questions now or at some point in the future, as far as the timing on, this committee, we would, love to get an answer from you guys as soon as possible just to move things along, but really, we could wait until March to get, a more thorough answer from the Select Board if you need some time to go through or have more questions on it. March is the time frame that the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission should have been receiving federal updates, notifications of updates to a variety of grant funding programs, federal grant funding programs like TAP and CMAQ and others. So let me know if you have any questions for me.
My question is, you're here tonight before us to ask us to continue the committee.
Correct.
And that's it. You're not asking for funding or anything, just to make it clear to everybody.
Absolutely.
It's just to continue the.
That is correct.
Jim?
It also requests that we move forward with a new revised or amended charter for accomplishing the following.
Right.
So that needs some work as well.
We think a new charter is in order. It would probably sound very similar to our existing charter, but these are some of the updates that we think would make sense. And we're open to discussion on these items. Some of it is nitty-gritty, like the fact that, Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail is saying, okay, well, we'd like to have an MOU in place. We're in agreement with that. Whether or not that particular item needs to be in the charter, we usually default to you guys on items like that, or Derek gives us guidance.
So would it be accurate to say, or agreeable to say that you would currently move forward with your current charter, and you would be coming back to us with an updated charter.
Correct.
Would that be correct?
It would be, I think, I'm relatively new to the group. So we also went through and put some numbers in for like what design estimates are and everything else like that. I think in order for this committee to get success regardless, there needs to be funding from the town and commitment, much like what we've seen with the library and all these other grants. If we're not gonna like put some money in, we're not gonna win the TAP grant. In my honest opinion, that's why we didn't win the TAP grant, is because we didn't have the funding and push behind that to make it happen.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but,
Go right ahead.
so the match grant amount, it's certainly true that in our TAP grant application, we had no money committed from any source. This committee is interested in doing a pledge campaign for donations to cover that cost. It would be $250,000 minimum that we would have to raise. And we're up for it. That's what this committee wishes to do. We wish to move forward with a capital campaign for donations/pledges from private donations to cover as much as possible of that $250,000. So we would love it if the town would be able to step forward and say, you know, we're going to give this much money. But we understand the process, we understand the budget constraints, we understand that there would need to be a warrant article with a vote. We understand all that. So we would like to spend the next 2 years seeing how much private donations we can raise.
So that,
Jim?
sorry, so you would have to raise that 250 by when?
The fall of 2028 is currently when it looks like the TAP grant will be open for applications.
You'd have to reapply and then tell them how much money you have and all that at that point. Okay.
Correct.
So, okay, all right.
So, did you have something else?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is this committee does not have to be the ones that raise the money. Correct? Like, the rail trail, the Friends of the Rail Trail, if it was more staffed, funded with a board, they could actually invest time to help raise funds for it, correct?
Well, I don't have any authority to speak for the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail. I'm a supporter, obviously, but I'm not on the board. This committee is in very close contact with Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail. As you know, Dave Pierce was on this committee for almost its duration. And the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail is in support of a campaign to raise money. They have stated many times they're willing to be the 501c3 to hold the money. And we have people on our committee that are interested in making that happen.
And I did see winners of the TAP grant that were not necessarily like committees. They were, you know, Main Street, Friends of the Rail Trails.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't necessarily have to come from this committee. My other comment is that to have these meetings and everything else also requires town employees to be there and everything else. And we're waiting another 2+ years to figure out if we can get this. I think that we probably, I'm just gonna say it out loud, I think we have other more important things to go after as a select board in a town right now.
Can I speak to that issue? It's a good issue. I totally get it. People are burnt out from being on these, some people are burnt out from being on these committees, or they're overcommitted already and don't have time to be on one more committee. We think that as far as having a select board member on the committee, I don't know if I'll get the verbiage right, it could be an ex officio sort of position where they don't have to be there at every meeting, and we don't even know yet if we'll be having a meeting every month or every 2 months. But, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is a avenue that could be taken so that we don't have to burden a select board member with the responsibility of being on that committee for any significant duration of time.
Yeah, I don't think it's a select board member thing that I'm worried about. It's more the fact that we have to have Derek or somebody else from the town attend these meetings and keep track of them and everything else like that.
And I'm not sure, again, like, this is where we need to be focusing our time.
I personally don't want to rain on somebody's parade, okay? If they think they can go do it, and they realize they don't have the financial support, which obviously we can't put any financial support behind it at this time, we can't even get the roads fixed and other things, and we can't pay our personnel. We definitely can't assign any dollar value to it. But I don't think it's unreasonable to have a little bit of buy-in by participating. That's just my feelings. And I think would be our buy-in at this time.
Go
ahead.
I agree with you 100%. I think it's inspiring to see townspeople willing to put themselves out to do something like that. It's a worthy project. Is it probably the most important thing that the town needs? No, but we've got people that have already put a couple of years into it, and they're willing to keep going. We don't have to put any money into it now. Maybe things change in a couple of years, and we can if we have to, but we don't have to do anything right now, and so I agree with you 100%, and I applaud you for your efforts.
Okay.
Before I respond, Mark, or do you guys have anything to say?
I would echo Jim 100%. I'm so used to people saying we should when they really mean that someone else should, but they're actually saying we should, meaning themselves. And I think that we should allow them to step up if they want to do that.
And I feel the same way. I mean, I'm just gonna reiterate what they've all said, and I'm in for it.
So,
Okay, so I would recommend somebody make a motion that we allow them to continue and then come in with the anticipation that they're gonna come in with an updated charter in by the second quarter. How's that? I mean,
Sounds good.
is that reasonable?
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Before we do anything like that, I totally respect everybody here that volunteers. Like, my family constantly volunteers, and again, I commend all of that, and I'm glad that you're doing it. That's not the challenge here. I think that we're focusing on whether or not people have time or that they're committed. I love that they're committed. I think that that's fantastic. What I'm saying, though, is regardless if it's me, I'll show up to the meetings. That's not the problem. Like I said, I don't think it's a select board issue. I think if you're going to update the charter or somehow, like Derek, I don't know if we can like remove the requirement for a town person to be there and have a committee and get updates on that. But like, I think we need to have Derek doing other things, not going to this committee meeting.
I don't disagree. I think that's why we can make those changes.
Ultimately, the committee will have to follow the right to know law. That's why we have sent staff to assist them with that, to assist volunteers. That's why we provide staff liaisons to boards and committees, is to make sure that they take minutes, they post agendas, those kind of things. So we do provide it, but we can, I can work with Paula on a revised charter and make it a little bit clear that it'll need to be a self-supported ad hoc committee, and it'll be their responsibility for those items.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue.
That's fine.
And we could consider bi-monthly or even quarterly meetings if, I would have to check with the board really, but, I'm sorry, the committee. But, the pace is going to be, I think, slow at the beginning if we're allowed to do the fundraising, and then, in theory, should pick up and be more active as we get closer to grant deadlines.
Agreed. And I do think it would be good if the Friends of the Rail Trail were involved. Like, my other challenge with the committee so far too, just so that there's several vacant seats on here. Like, are those the right seats?
Right, we've had those discussions and we agree we have put some thought into it. We do have ideas on what a revised roster might make sense. So I'm in agreement on that.
Because we need to make sure you're successful, not going through the same process over and over
Right.
again.
That's why I say by the second quarter, they should have a revised charter and work with Derek on, do we need a Parks and Rec there? Or we need, somebody else there from the town, that type of thing.
Okay.
Okay? Do we want to take a vote on that?
Yeah, it'd be great if you could
I'll-
direct them to revise their charter and bring it back to you for approval.
I'll move that we authorize the committee to stay in existence for a certain amount of time, or if we...
Well, they're asking for 2 years, pretty
Okay,
much.
Right, at least to 2028 when the grants become available.
for another 2 years, and provided that they present the select board with a revised charter, revised charter revisions by the second quarter of this year.
Second.
Second by, I'll take it. You want to take? Motion by second by Richard. Any questions, discussions?
I'd like to revise that to say that we should get the charter and then determine the amount of length that we think that it should be there for, because this was planned to go until March, I believe originally we talked about.
So you extended it for a 2-year period in June of 2024. So
It expires in March of '26, that's why we say we go to,
I think it said it's in existence until a decision has been rendered on NHDOT TAP funds.
Right.
So that decision was made last fall. The ad hoc committee met, reviewed those, and have come back with this status report. So I think if you say until, especially as you'll have a new select board, or there's a potential for a new select board come March, I think by the end of April, you have them come in with a charter revision.
That's what I would say, extend it until
That's right.
April and then make the decision based upon the charter.
okay, but the problem is their charter is done right now. Because what the charter said, the original was that they were, by the results of the TAP grant,
Or unless specifically extended by the select board. So I
Which is
think
what
you
we're
could
doing
extend-
now.
Yeah,
Which
extend
is
the
what we're doing
existing
now.
charter
Okay.
now. And then have them come in by the, in April with a revised.
So that way we know what the outcome is supposed to be.
can you do your charter in the next 3 months?
Yes.
Okay,
Awesome.
Jim?
I just got an oddball question. If you would be ending as it sits now, the committee would end when?
We're extending it now.
So I guess they're asking you to extend it until April, and then most likely you'd be extending it until 2028, when they come back in
Based
April.
on the new charter.
Well, my thought is that that's not going to create a difficulty when you apply for the grant if you're
Nope.
ending at that certain time, okay.
No, the biggest issue is getting the money to be able to
I
offset.
understand that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, are we all set with that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And Danielle and, looks like Scott Gross?
Can we postpone, Scott had to run out to another meeting, he'll be back in about 20, 30 minutes, so.
Okay.
we defer to these
We'll put you back.
Do you want to take DPW potentially now?
Sure, while everybody's here. Adam, why don't you come on up?
Get your tomatoes out, folks.
Thank you. I was supposed to have the Imperial March play as I walked up. But, didn't happen, so I'm going to start over, if that's all right with everybody.
So here we are.
Here we are. Okay, so as we chatted about in December, and the board requested I do a little bit more information gathering for you to actually discuss street names in public. I think we're here, so unless anybody has any, they've already hit the packet, so I think obviously word's out there between my outreach efforts and then obviously the packet itself. So if anybody has any qualms about any of them being voiced into the minutes, let me know, I guess, before we get too deep into this. I don't know if anybody had a chance to drive out some of these and take a look, or what the last couple of weeks have looked like for you folks, but I'm ready to discuss if you are, so.
Go right ahead.
Seeing none. All right.
Get right into it.
Okay, so as you've got in your packet, we do have a handful of farm roads or low-traveled roads, some that have maybe one, maybe two houses, some that have a couple vacant lots associated with them in town that have been maintained. As a couple of the residents mentioned back in the 80s and then again in the 90s, there were some efforts to pare down, I think, the maintenance load of the town. In some cases, a lot of those roads were discontinued at the time. Some of these were kept on the rolls of DPW and affirmed by a town vote in 1985. The question then was posed to the voters, should we continue to maintain these following roads as we have? By voting in the affirmative, the town accepted those roads at that point. So from a legal standpoint, that's acceptance by the town. So from that point on, any that weren't considered roads in the past were now roads. So all of them have Class 5 status due to that maintenance that we performed, and some of those due to that vote. The list that I've given you, I kind of kept them all together, and then at the end I kind of broke them up into two different categories. So if you want me to just read down for the meeting anyway, the roads that we're talking about?
Go ahead.
Okay, so street segments in question: Saunders Road from Story Road intersection to the end. Story Road / Old Story Road from Saunders to the end. Martin Farm Road from Patty Hill Road to Route 13 to the end. Upaway Farm Road from Patty Hill, Route 13 to the end. Naser Place from Gorham Pond Road to the end. Worthley Hill, also known as Mountain Trolley Farm Road, from Mountain Base Road to the Class 6 section. So the Class 6 on Worthley Hill continues on beyond that. Welch Hill from Shirley Hill Road to the end. Roberts Farm Road from Addison Road to the end, including the Class 6 portion by request of the resident there. French and Rising, Clint Rising Way from Prospect Street back down to South Mass Street. And now I've, to cut right to the end, I'll just say the recommendations I made would, if the town wants to proceed with any of these, my recommendation would be to fully discontinue Saunders Road, as the section mentioned, Naser Place, Welch Lane, Roberts Road, and Clint Rising Way. But then a recommendation from me would be to discontinue subject to gates and bars, which would mean that these would remain a public road, but they would be Class 6, so non-maintained public road. This would preserve a public street frontage for any of the parcels inside, and I recommend these because they do or would have landlocked parcels if they were fully discontinued. Story, Old Story, Martin Farm Road, Upaway Farm Road, and Worthley Hill Mountain Trolley. So those first three because they have a landlocked parcel if they were to be fully discontinued, and the last because it already connects to a Class 6 section of Worthley Hill that continues all the way over to the high school side of the hill. I did include some information for you about each of the abutting parcels for each of these roads. I included some information from New Hampshire Municipal Association, which has that great resource, A Hard Road to Travel, and then they also have a small blurb in the Knowing the Territory book, which is more about other things that are not road related. But the Hard Road to Travel is the best, they update that frequently. It's the best tome that we have, I guess, for road law and road maintenance related issues in the state of New Hampshire. That's done by the lawyers at New Hampshire Municipal Association. So, got that. We've got some maps and pictures to kind of make sure we're all talking about the same sections of road, and I think you've heard from a smattering of people here tonight. I do appreciate everybody showing up, especially short notice. Just as a refresher of how the process is required to work, if the board does decide that they want to put an article on the warrant, there's a legal notice that goes out to every abutter to let them know that deliberative session is coming up, and this will be discussed at deliberative session, and then of course whatever makes it out of deliberative session into the town ballot. I can certainly field any questions or be here to help with discussion.
Peter?
Go ahead.
So Adam, if we discontinue these roads, or don't do anything to them, it now possibly may become the responsibility of the people that live on that road, or who takes the responsibility over?
That's correct. So in both a full discontinuance and a discontinuance subject to gates and bars, the town would no longer maintain these roads. In a full discontinuance scenario, the town, the public, I should say, when I say the town, I mean the whole public, traveling public and all, would not, in a full discontinuance scenario, the public can't go on to these anymore. As you know, four-wheelers like to call us every so often for lists of the Class 6 roads in town. And they'll come off with their trucks and you know, go through these at night or whatever. But They wouldn't be able to do that in a full discontinuance scenario. Maintenance would fall back on anybody that wants to use that road. So if it's a road like Roberts Road, which serves a single parcel, that single property owner would be responsible for that as a private driveway at that stage. If there was a section which served multiple properties, it would be up to those served by that shared driveway to determine how they want to handle the maintenance of that. As a couple of the residents mentioned, a few of these are a mix of houses and vacant parcels, but I think two is there's only one with two houses on it versus a single residence. In a Class 6 scenario, the town could maintain, or, like emergency maintenance, somebody gets stuck out in the woods, it happens all the time, maybe not all the time, but happens frequently on our Class 6 roads. Somebody will either get stuck, or an Amazon driver will just read their GPS and go off into a Class 6 and find out after a quarter mile that they've gotten stuck and they can't turn back around. We can assist the other emergency services with access for those. Similar to a private driveway, if there's an issue where police or fire are trying to respond and the driveway hasn't been maintained properly in the winter time, we do treat to protect the town asset. If they really want to get the truck in that driveway, we'll go ahead and treat the driveway to allow that access, both for the vehicles and for the personnel on foot. So it's not that we can't with a Class 6 scenario, but it's just that the burden of maintenance is no longer there. So along with that lack of burden of maintenance comes the legal protections for the town, where we're not on the hook for deficiencies in a Class 6 road. So if there's a shoulder edge that gets washed out after a big rainstorm on a Class 6, we're not going to go put that Class 6 road back together. Anybody that wants to use it certainly can. Anybody that has a land or a driveway on those Class 6s can maintain the access to their properties. Usually we highly recommend a maintenance of liability waiver, which allows, if somebody's using a Class 6 as a driveway, they say, well, I'm going to maintain it in the winter, but I don't put any liability on the town by doing this if they take some action that gets them injured or injures their equipment.
So we don't plow any Class 6s?
That's right. Correct.
Is that really the only maintenance that we're spending on all of these, Adam?
So it's hit and miss. Some are gravel roads, so we'll grade them as needed. Admittedly, for some of the gravel roads that aren't a connecting road, they get less, I won't say a lower standard, but they get less grading treatments for sure. Some of them are paved, so in those instances, we'll patch potholes. Because they're Class 5, any insufficiency. If somebody calls me and says that the road is overtopped or part of it's breaking up, I have to treat that just like I would Mast Road. And whether that's go out and identify what the problem might be, mark it, cones, barrels if it has to be, and then at some point repair it. Yes, the most common link with all of these is winter maintenance, of course. Plowing, it's tough. Every winter's a little different. We estimate usually about a dozen plowing events a year, and then plus another 10 to 15, 20 treatment events, treatment only. So it's not enough snow, but it's sleet, freezing rain, that type of thing. Some of these are gravel, which presents a little bit higher problem for us because we try to treat with straight salt, so we don't put a bunch of sand into our drainage systems. But on a gravel road, if you treat with salt in the winter, it turns pretty muddy because it will never freeze. And you actually want a gravel road base to freeze because it gives a firmer support. If you've tried to travel in mud season, you see the effect of a poor road base. So we don't want that year-round through the winter time. So if we have to treat a gravel road, we have a truck that will go back around at the end of the treatment event, load up with sand, and then go out to these kind of scattershot gravel road areas to lay a treatment of sand. Trying to think of any others. So trees, I think somebody brought up a tree issue. So in theory, roadside mowing and tree maintenance, just like every other public road. If we have a hazard tree, it's on us to take care of the hazard. We run into a lot of, on some Class 6 roads, we'll still get calls from abutters Typically, that happens up on the mountain near Uncanunic Lake, where the town is also a property owner. So there's a little bit of overlapping public responsibilities on those areas where the town owns the parcel from which the tree is growing, so we actually have a duty to maintain that from falling on somebody else's property, even though it's a Class 6 road. So it does get a little complicated with, you know, some of the Class 6s and how they're not quite the same category.
Do you have, I know it's going to be kind of a tough question, but what kind of, how does this impact your budget?
So budgeting, it's a tough one to quantify because it's all death by a thousand cuts. So for the most part, it's that, you know, that small percentage of every storm event or every treatment event to get to these. Certainly, you know, the cost of material is not inconsequential, but it's not, you know, we're not going broke paying for salt and sand for these. Certainly the time and the overtime aspects are higher. The cost of those that are paved ratchets up pretty quickly if it deteriorates to the point where it needs to be resurfaced or reclaimed or, you know, return to gravel status at some point. So that's where it starts to get it, you know, a lump sum type cost. So a couple recently that had been paved in the past and they were failed. Naser Place a handful of years ago and Welch's Farm Road were both resurfaced. So those were, you know, not huge bills for the town, but, you know, it's like paving a pretty good driveway. So you know, $10,000–15,000 at a pop for those. The one thing that happens, not super often with all of them, but at least a couple times a year, we'll get either concerned residents or concerned abutters that will call and quiz us about why we're plowing their neighbors' driveways. Why not mine? My driveway is twice as long as this one. That kind of thing. Or I saw your truck up off, you know, such and such road in the middle of the night. You know, what are they doing? Are they doing something wrong? No, that's, you know, it's a public way. So there's some of that, but there's not, you know, there's, other than the small perception issues, there's not a real cost out of that, of course. But you know, I think as I mentioned at the last meeting, the reason this was brought up to your attention in the first place was we had a landowner on one of these that actually is desirous of a discontinuance. So we said, okay, well, we have at least one. I'm not going to bring just one to you. We have a category of roads that are, you know, it's been talked about over the decades, and just want to make sure that the board is trying to look holistically at you know, like roads together, I guess.
Anybody else? Questions, Jim? Richard? Josh?
Actually, I did have a couple notes. There was a question about utilities. Certainly, any utility companies have kind of overlapping easements with the public right-of-way, and then where they might cross and go across other parcels, there's easements that they've either had recorded or they're so old that there's, you know, it's a prescriptive easement for certain utilities. The utilities have a legal responsibility to maintain those rights-of-way. So regardless of what would happen with say for instance, a Saunders Road section, if there's a utility that runs along it, they would maintain that responsibility to maintain their lines, just as they would other areas where they have those cross-country. Then one of the other things to kind of at least know about is a lot of these are below town standards, primarily when it comes to width. So the width of the traveled way, but also the width of the right-of-way, which allows you know, room for drainage off the sides and then snow storage, that kind of thing. So some of these tend to get pretty narrow at some point. One in particular that the drivers have indicated is a potential issue for them to navigate is the connection between Clinton Rising Way, the backside of French and Rising, and then the, where it connects back down into South Mass is very narrow. So with a truck and a wing, usually it's hard.
Josh, did you have something?
I do have a question now. So the person that brought up the request to discontinue, is it the person that was out of town?
That was mentioned earlier?
Yes.
No. No.
But you said it was on Saunders Way.
Yes, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the one that was mentioned earlier was on.
And Saunders Way was the one that was
Upaway
mentioned
Farm.
was out of town.
I think that was Upaway Farm.
No, I was up away from it.
88 Saunders is Massachusetts.
88 Saunders does, yes, there is a residence there. The current owner does, yes, live.
And you just said Saunders Way was one of the ones, I thought, at least in my notes that I have. And it has a question, requested by property owner / buyer.
Yes, I think multiple, right, interest there. So the concern there is that property owner would like to maintain the farm nature of that parcel. It's one of the larger contiguous land areas in town left that are not developed. So as they're trying to pass on a legacy, they'd like to do anything they can to keep people out of there. They get a lot of visitors up at the end of the road.
So they're trying to keep people out of there.
Trying to prevent further subdivision of the parcel, yeah.
How many houses on that road?
That section, just one at the end. There's a couple on the other, at the beginning of Saunders as you come up, that would still remain public in this.
There's one on that side of the road.
But there's one at the very end, yeah.
Okay. Anything else, other questions? When does this have to be decided to get on the ballot?
You'd have to decide this evening. There is a notice requirement of 14 days prior to the town meeting when this would be discussed. That would be deliberative session. So if the board were to act on the recommended motions on page 2, whether fully or partially, we would need to get those legal notices out this week to impacted property owners.
So what brought this up, Adam, just to get back to this, brought this up for a review of these roads, was the one person on Saunders brought it up to you, and then you decided to go ahead and take a look at the rest of it.
So we've had, not that we keep our little lists over at DPW, but, so we've had a handful of these that have been identified as like, okay, is this fair to everyone else in town to maintain this road / access? Some, as you may guess, and as we see here, that it's kind of a contentious political issue. So we weren't exactly falling all over ourselves to bring that to the select board for discussion again. I know it's been talked about, 40 years ago. But yes, we did have somebody reach out to us and say, hey, what would it take to get an article up to discontinue this section of road? We let them know, but I said, but we also have talked about this ourselves. I'll bring it to the board and see if they want to go any further with anything else, so.
So what is the issue of taking it one at a time? Like that person on Saunders wants that,
Absolutely nothing.
and that person.
I think not for me to decide that, you certainly could. I think one of the overarching important things to try to think about is, okay, is it, fair to continue maintaining some versus others, and if there's a discussion
Personally,
on
if
that,
the one person brought this up and then it's not even here, for me, it's just, thanks for wasting my time. That's not meant to be one way, no, you can't do that. So, yeah, that's, I don't know, I'm just, leave it.
Can I make a motion?
Go ahead.
I move that we not recommend to put this on the warrant.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Josh. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. I'll stick tight for highway safety.
Danielle, did Scott make it back yet? No?
No, not yet.
All right, police chief?
You're at tab 6A in your packet.
Police chief?
I think he's letting people clear out.
Yep, that's fine.
Oh, they're not gonna stick around?
Thank you, everyone.
I know we have a lot of meetings. You guys can show up a few other times, too.
Yes.
It gets pretty lonely here.
See you, Josh.
See you later, Frank.
Small
tell Adam that we don't mind if he brings one person? He doesn't have to wait till he gets 15 of them.
Take that guardrail out. All right, we have the police chief up next. Adam? Are you sitting in with the police chief to help?
Yeah, so he's,
Yes.
yeah, he's asking for help already, so. Apparently nobody wants to sit and watch me, so. It's a good time. Thank you all. I'm here for highway safety. I'll preface this with, I was not at highway safety. I was out that day, so Lieutenant Hammond filled in for me, as well as Derek and Adam. So I'll go through these, and if you have some questions that I can't answer, certainly Adam and Derek can help. So I'll present the first one here. I believe in your packet is Patty Hill Road is the first one you guys have. So basically, Patty Hill Road, resident came in requesting a street light in their area of Patty Hill Road. Highway Safety took this up and voted 5-0 and recommended no action. As you all can remember, through the years, we typically, based on the light pollution, we typically don't recommend them unless it's a public safety need. This one did not seem like it needed to be that case. So we didn't have any high volume accident data, and also is that part of town was designed to be an underlit area. So we recommended, I should say the committee recommended 5-0 to take no action on that.
You want to take these one at a time?
Yes, please.
Any discussion, questions on this one?
I'll make a motion, we accept the committee's report, voted 5-0-0 to recommend no action at this time.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Josh. Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
Next one, I'll take you to Tanager Road, Shirley Hill Road. This request is a request for daytime running lights, signage, and an ordinance they were looking for on Shirley Hill Road. Basically, the committee looked into this request, and they voted 5-0 to recommend no action on this. Lieutenant Hammond advised there was no high volume high volume accident data to support it, and also Adam Jacobs advised that the daytime running light sign was not approved as a sign to post out. Just a quick context: this individual lives in that area, has a hard time when they feel there's a blind corner coming out of Tanager onto Shirley Hill. In the past, this board has put some authorized some mirrors to be able to see that. This individual that requested it again feels that if the lights were on Shirley Hill all day long, they'd be able to see the cars, more readily, I guess. But
That's the one at the end of the road where we voted a couple of years ago to put the light, right? Yep.
The
I mean, the mirror, so they
Yes.
can see, yeah.
So it's been there, we maintained it, we haven't had any traffic data to support any accidents or anything like that. I think this is more or less a request, so when they're looking through the mirror, they can see the headlights coming. And they were gonna bring a request for an ordinance on that, which it doesn't make any sense.
So the mirror's there already,
The mirror's there, yes.
and they should be able to see coming out of the driveway.
Coming off of Tanager, taking a left on Shirley Hill, there's that blind corner that comes down the whole
Yeah.
of Shirley Hill. There's a mirror so they can see the cars, but they felt having lights on would be able to see better.
I'm sure it would help everybody, but, I mean, is it a requirement? It sounds like it's not.
It's not, Highway Safety did not recommend it.
Okay.
Motion?
The committee recommended and voted 5-0-0 to take no action at this time.
So you have a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion.
Okay.
Second?
No, you second.
I second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
We have an interesting way of doing things.
Yeah, you get the gist.
So the next one is a little bit different. This was a request initially started off for a no-through trucking on Grady Hill Road. Basically, Highway Safety looked at it. We did some traffic counts up there. Came back as Grady Hill did see roughly 1,500 vehicles per day. There were several in the packet that came back that were larger vehicles, bigger trucks than just regular cars, but 1,500 is pretty good for that small road. Throughout that meeting with the Highway Safety, Adam also advised the speed limit should be lowered due to the narrowness of the road and the curve.
and also advised it's a K value on the hill, on Grady Hill, which Grady Hill Road is a 1, and it approaches the crest is too steep to see oncoming traffic. So when Highway Safety went through and took up their recommendations, they did vote to recommend reducing the speed limit on Grady Hill to 25 miles an hour. Currently, it's not posted, so it would be, by law, be a 35. The committee also voted 5-0 to recommend installing Hill Blocks View sign with the appropriate speed advisory placard on Grady Hill. And the committee also voted 5-0 to recommend to have the town administrator look for legal counsel opinion on posting Grady Hill as a no-through trucking, and if that wasn't permissible, supporting more of a weight restriction. And this all comes from a person who lives in the on that road who feels that there are dump trucks, sand gravel trucks that are coming from the sand pit and Hooksett, traveling the way of, which would be our Hooksett Road, comes into East Dumbarton and then cuts through Grady Hill, right by their house,
Over to Terrell Hill.
which is a small road onto
Montalbano
Terrell
and Terrell.
Hill, coming down to Goffstown. They moved there, they feel this road is too small for those amount of trucks and those huge trucks coming through, so they went through and did it. It kind of coincides with the next one, a little bit of a different part of this Hooksett Road, no through trucking, because on the other side of Hooksett Road, in Hooksett, which is Goffstown Road, there is a no through trucking on that side. So essentially, if you think about it, these vehicles that are coming out of Hooksett are essentially violating their own ordinance and then coming into our town and cutting through our community. So
It's our trucks, mostly our people from town, in most cases, that are going to getting sand and gravel out of.
Is that what it is?
I don't know that for sure.
Well,
This
I-
individual is saying that they're coming from the sand pit, they're coming into Goffstown, and there's an ordinance, and there's two different things going on here. One, there's our no-through trucking, and the road is too narrow to be cutting through, and also, we're not allowed, when people are driving into Hooksett with trucks, there's no turnaround for them to basically get to that point of no return on Hooksett Road and say, there's no way to get out of here, I have to back up.
Well, when you post that road, if you were to post that road, all they would end up doing is going down Montaloma, down to Black Brook to get to the same, and then get over, if they want to get over to Terrell Hill, that's what they would have to do. Is that,
Exactly. For Grady Hill, the thought was, yep, there's not too far, the detour's not terribly difficult. Sorry, Chief, for
No, go ahead, please.
jumping in.
You're not-
But with Grady in particular, from the engineering perspective, that crest is so sharp that it's off, that K value of 1 is actually off the scale low, which means that they don't even have a recommendation for that sharp of a hill. So we should definitely take action on that one. The Hooksett Road piece is sort of a little separate
Yeah.
I
issue.
take that road a lot, so I know exactly the thing.
So when you say
Up close.
our people, you mean like people here that live in town, or are you talking about our trucks?
Contractors in town that, they'll go down to the pit, done.
I think what Pete's saying, if there's work to be done on Blackbrook Road, they need sand, they'll just go to Hooksett instead of coming back down to town or into where for
There's
this.
asphalt plants as well.
The asphalt plants down there, right there by
So
the,
people come from Dunbarton down Montalona Road, and then from
Used to
down.
be a
So what's gonna happen
Contractor
when people violate that? Like, what are you planning on doing at that point?
So if the board decides to make a no-through trucking and that all goes through town ordinance, it's gonna be similar to what we do when the other no-through truckings. If we see them violate it, we issue them an ordinance, or a violation for the town ordinance.
A citation?
Yep.
Okay. And how much does that cost them?
Depends, but typically they go to court for it, so it can be under $1,000 or up to $1,000. Usually it's about $100, unless we as a town, when we make the ordinance, we can put the fine in
And
there.
how often are we patrolling that over there?
Fairly often, we have a car out there.
Okay.
I mean, they're not, that area particularly is all the way from Mountain View Middle School to the Dumbarton line,
Yeah.
all the way to Manchester line, the back road, so it's one car. They go out there, they see it, they enforce it. We have a no-through trucking on Wallace Road.
yeah, Wallace Road has no through trucking. and-
We have, yeah, so I mean, that's something that, if we see a truck, obviously if they're going, Wallace Road's different, if they're going to a job on Wallace or off Wallace, that's different, but if they're cutting through to Bedford, we can stop them on that,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but they can go down and make the turn, like you say, it's just a little bit of a out of the way type thing, but.
I think the things we have
playing here is, one is, you know, A, is it legal for us to post the no through trucking? Our council says yes. We have to be very specific into what the ordinance is gonna say. Obviously, like anything else we do in this town, messaging is gonna be key. But we have the Jake breaks and all those, people need to know that stuff.
I'll make a motion to accept the Grady Hill Road recommendations as provided.
Seconded. Any further discussion?
But before you
Go
vote,
ahead.
we do need one point of clarification. So over the last, I mean, before my time, but the entire time I've been town administrator, we've been doing traffic ordinances as an ordinance adoption with 2 public hearings and a vote 2 weeks later. Throughout this whole process, we actually learned that traffic regulations are adopted under a completely different statute, do not require public hearings, they just need a vote of the board. So I guess our question is, how would you like to handle traffic regulations for these and for moving forward? Do you want us to bring the proposed in the case of these, we would write them up, bring them back to you at a future meeting but how do you want to proceed with
This
those?
particular one, where the road is actually deemed not appropriate for heavy trucks, I would think that would just come to us.
Okay.
Something else like stop signs, or where you're where you try, people want to get input. Let's remember Parker Station and all the input we had on that kind. I think it's that type of recommendation should probably have public hearing. Not only that, just to let people, that also lets the information out there that know what the decision was made.
So what we can do as part of the Highway Safety Committee recommendations, we can have a question put on the form of, does the select board want a public hearing on this proposed change, or do you just want to enact it at your next meeting? Is that sufficient?
Isn't it either, it's not either or?
You can hold a public hearing on anything. You can hold a public hearing on anything that you want.
Okay,
But
so-
rather than going through the ordinance procedure where it's 2 public hearings
2
and then a
weeks
vote,
apart.
I mean, that's
But we typically do them all at once, correct, Derek?
you do, yeah.
So is it really that big of a deal to let the
Well,
public?
this one is a no-brainer, though.
I know it's a no-brainer, but is it that big of a deal to let the public at least just weigh
Just
in on
drags
it?
it out, that's all.
I think what happens, if you look at it, again, it doesn't matter to me personally, but I think what happens, like Pete said, is that we go through this meeting, you guys approve it, he then schedules a public hearing 2 weeks, and then we have another one, so you're looking at almost,
It ends up being 4 meetings.
Yeah.
The highway safety presenting it,
yeah,
2 meetings of public hearings, and then a vote. If the board still wants to do a public hearing on these
They
and
can.
vote on the same night, you could do that. And we can do that for a while and see how much participation we have. I'm not trying to take the public hearing out of it, but when we discovered, we went through this whole process and looked at how Hooks had adopted their no-through trucking, we kind of clued into the fact that we've been doing traffic regulations. We've been going through extra hurdles that we didn't need to.
and again, we've had some where we've asked, people have asked for speed limit reductions, we've gone through, we've recommended it, but based on timing, it's taken months, and then the ground's frozen, they're trying to dig that out, and people tend to be like, this is taking typical government work, it takes forever to get things done, and for us, it doesn't bother me either way. Public hearings are
I would recommend at least some way to have a hearing, whether it's both the same night or what.
That's fine, it's good to have the input.
I think the same night would make a lot of sense.
Okay, we can
You
make
want to do
that
that on this one? I mean, this is the obvious one, I mean, if you've been up there, you know the road.
I know it's obvious, but I think just at the next meeting, we could always just go through it, right?
Yeah, we can, we went into it, we would do it for 2 weeks from now, but what we could do is post it, put it on our public notices, and just get the word out in case anyone did want to come in and.
All right, next. What's the next one?
So you had a motion and a second on that, but I didn't see a vote.
We're gonna,
To move forward with the recommendations.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
perfect.
And then we talked about the next one already, correct? Hooksett Road, so I'll make a motion to accept the recommendations on Hooksett Road as outlined.
Second,
So this one is what we're really doing on this one is the town of Goffstown would not be posting it as no-through trucking. What we'd be doing is posting it on Hooksett's,
website.
no, on their behalf at the intersection with East Dunbarton. Because what's happening right now is even though the road on our portion might be okay for trucks. As soon as they hit that town line, they see the no trucks, there's no place to turn around or anything.
Yeah, they gotta
So-
go to 21, turn around over the.
So we have the same, we actually have the same exact situation on Parker Station. People coming from New Boston and Ware area, they have trucks, but they can go there. They don't take the right off of River Road. They hit Parker Station, there's nowhere for them to. So what we're trying to do is basically give those truckers advisement, as you're coming to Hooksett, you're gonna get stuck with a no through trucking, so find a different way to go.
Did we ever put up the no Jake signs?
Oh, yeah.
I've
Oh, yeah.
never noticed them. That's all.
Yep, they're out there. So what we're asking is just for us to work with Town of Hooksett and put
I get
signs
it.
up to advisory signs, essentially.
My motion still stands.
Anybody second it?
No.
Jim did, I think.
Second. Jim did, yeah. There you go.
Motion by Joe, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
That was it.
Is that it?
So next meeting, we're gonna talk about church parking lots, right? Is that, no, I'm just kidding.
Are you planning on filling up the pews again?
I think that's the first meeting in April.
I mean, you really know how to get people fired up, Adam. I like it.
If you want unity in town, just come see me today.
Yeah, we got you. Yeah, all right. Just
Derek, I think you're up, right? Oh, no,
No,
sorry.
no, we've got,
Scott is here, even though
Scott,
we've
yep.
called his name a couple of times.
Hey, Adam, thank you for putting that together, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Net metering,
Do we want the slides, or do you want to?
They have all the slides in their packet.
we're at tab 5.
Tab 5, yeah.
Adam's sitting here, it's just pretty hot.
It is. You may want to switch.
Sitting here? Oh,
It's good luck.
it's very warm.
All right.
Okay, start off, Danielle.
So we're here to talk to you this evening about the potential for solar net metering. This is a process by which the town essentially rents out a portion of our utility usage to a project developer who can get credits, and they share a portion of those credits with the town, because projects in New Hampshire have to have someone assigned to take the energy that they produce before they're allowed to go live and produce that energy. They can't just overload the grid with energy production. So on slide 3, the first one's really just a title slide and agenda. So slide 3 shows you that visual. The project, being a solar project, would produce power to the utility. The utility, under state law, gives the credit back to that project, and that project shares it with the host being, in this case, the town and school. So at the bottom, they show you an example generation of 1 million kilowatt hours at a 10 cent credit value would be 100,000 in credits, and then there's a 10% share on that example. So you'd see a savings of $10,000 in that case. So a few things to kind of review with the board about this. People always ask, what are the risks to net metering? Because it kind of sounds a little too good to be true. We don't really change anything we're doing, we just start getting a credit. So the legislative risk is the program could be altered in the future because it is set by statute. It's possible it could get better like other New England states, or they could do away with the program. So the way that we would manage against that risk, it would be in the contract language that we choose if we were to sign one of these contracts with a project developer. The developer selection would be run through our current utility consult, which is Competitive Energy Services. The board had moved forward with them as a consultant, so they would go through and coordinate with the projects. So they avoid, of course, projects that are unlikely to be complete. They wait until the projects are in the queue and ready to be purchased out or rented out before they would move forward.
Do they take a cut?
They do. We talk about that on the next slide.
Okay.
Project underperformance could be a risk. In the case that we're talking about, we would not be tied to any specific quantity other than the portion that we're renting out. And so we're limiting any potential underperformance of the project. And then the term risk, a lot of times people ask, the standard term on these agreements is 20 years, and that's a long time. So part of the way you manage it would be just a matter of making sure that you're not overextending how much utility you anticipate using. And then the price risk. So credit value per kilowatt hour could change. It is set by state statute. But in this case, because we're looking at credits, it could potentially go down, but it could never go negative. We would never have to pay them for the project. It's just the revenue would go away if the project went away.
So, my ignorance here, who's installing solar panels?
That's what I was gonna say. So there are no solar panels being installed on either town or school property. What this is essentially is that there are folks who are looking to develop solar projects in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And in order to do that, they have to find a host, someone who consumes a lot of electricity. That's why we're here, because between the town and the school, we consume a lot of electricity. So what this company does is they put out so there's someone who's a developer, and let's just say hypothetically, that they're looking to do a solar project in Lebanon, New Hampshire, hypothetically. And it's going to be a certain number of kilowatts. They then have to find a host. This company here would be the one that matches that developer's needs with a host similar to the town and school districts of Goffstown, and meshes them together, because they need these hosts throughout New Hampshire in order to continue with their projects, essentially.
They
So
can't greenlight
the
a
law-
project until they have all their hosts identified
So
and
they
signed.
would facilitate electricity to the town and the school? Is that what I'm to understand, or no?
No.
They
nothing.
facilitate it to Eversource,
Uh-huh.
and we're an Eversource customer, so we're eligible to be a host for them.
Right, and so with that, and you'll explain that on the next slide, you can either get credits on your bill or you can get a check, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I wanted to make it crystal clear, because I did talk to the school board about this a couple of weeks ago. No solar panels are being put on any of the school buildings or school property, or town property. This is simply, we're the surrogate here, we're the host. They're looking for someone in the state of New Hampshire that consumes a lot of electricity. They found one in a municipality. And with that, we reap a very, well, it's kind of a nominal thing, nominal benefit, but we reap benefits just because we're a big user of electricity. So that's all that they're
We're
looking
like
for.
an investor on other projects, kind of.
Similarly, I mean, I said this at the school board, and I don't know if it's the wonderful analogy or not, but like, there's a law that allows charitable gaming, you know, and part of that is that you have to give money back to different charities. Well, they're kind of like the host in that case. Well, in this case, if you want to do a solar project, you have to find a user of electricity that will serve as your host in order to offset that credit. And all this company does is it matches the developer with the big users of credit. So Manchester, the city and the school district, they have one because they're a massive user of electricity. So they've entered into some of these agreements. And there's a few other towns. So this is not necessarily super new, but it's one that there are more people who want to develop these solar projects, and there are fewer of these host communities.
So what's our obligation?
So our obligation would really only be that we're agreeing to rent it to them for a term of time, in this case, 20 years.
That's it.
That's it. So the RSA was originally came into existence in 2018, but municipalities were excluded. So they had to find private companies who would be able to do it. Municipalities got added in 2023. So it's relatively new for our category, but it's, you know, part of the benefit is if you're an early adopter, you're getting a better rate because there's fewer hosts in the market. When more and more municipalities start jumping in, instead of paying 10 or 11 cents, they may pay 8 cents. So the idea is, you know, get the benefit while it's available, and it locks in your rate for the term. The rate is set by the Public Services Commission.
Yeah. The other thing that I should point out, so two things. One, no solar panels on school or town property. And the other thing is this has absolutely nothing to do with our current electric rate programs that we have in place. So for the school district, we use Standard Power, and we have an agreement with them. We're gonna continue with them. It has nothing to do with that. And what we'll talk about on the next slide is, well, what do we get, or what are we anticipating that we'll get in terms of extra revenue, and how do you get that? And spoiler alert, you know, we're talking about just getting a check so that we can demonstrate to the citizens of Goffstown that this is the tangible amount of money that we received in that given year for us just simply being a host. They do offer the ability to put a credit on your bill, but we felt that it would be more advantageous for us to receive a check for the school and for the town, and then we can show the community this is what we got. And you'll see that the dollar amounts are, they're not nothing. I mean, they're not huge, but then again, in an environment, you know, that we're in right now, every dollar counts. So,
Where's the money go?
into your general fund as a revenue.
General fund revenue.
Yeah.
Unanticipated revenues, how would that be?
No, it would be anticipated because we'd have a specific
You'd have an
contract
agreement, so
for
you
it.
would have a contract, so you would know, so you would include it in your revenue
But
budget.
it's not based on net metering, where some years you maybe use
There-
more than another year?
There
or-
will be some variability to what you would get, but for the most part, it is fairly predictable.
Right, because we're only giving them a portion,
Right.
we're only kind of allowing them to use either 70 or 80% of our total usage. So they look back at the history of what we use and they say, okay, we're comfortable that this is the 70 to 80% of what you could offload. So when we sign that contract, we guarantee that number of kilowatt hours. That way in the future, if our buildings become more efficient or we close a building and stop using electricity there, we don't jeopardize the agreement by not producing or not using enough
Right.
electricity.
So we have to pay them $1,000? Is that what I'm reading?
So we're gonna, you wanna
No.
just go to that?
Let's get to
Do you want me
that.
to jump to
Yeah.
that?
No, let's get to that.
Okay. So, on slide 6 in your packet, they talk about an upfront fee, and that's really for them to run the RFP process, to draft the contracts, to negotiate on our behalf. And then there's also an annual audit reporting that we would be receiving as well. So the upfront fee is split, and you see in the blue, there's a summary, $3,000 for the school and $1,000 for the town, based on our total usage combined as a ratio. However, you'll notice on the star, it says for the first several years following the monetary credits, the fixed upfront fee will be applied against your group net metering. So instead of, say, collecting 10%, which would be their normal annual fee, they'll only collect 5% for the first 4 years until they've given us back the upfront fee.
So we're not issuing a check to them, it'll just be a credit.
It'll be a credit.
So we're not paying anything out of pocket?
Correct,
Correct.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So
No
we're-
out-of-pocket payment.
Okay.
They're gonna take the fees out of the first 4 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where did it say that in the contract?
So they said the language, he gave me one specific.
When I looked at it, I didn't see that.
I can get you the specific sentence, the way that it's, the legal terms he used.
It was in the appendix A where they talk about the $1,000.
And this is something that when we chatted with them last week, we talked about that. So most of these projects, there is a payment up front, and Danielle and I agreed that neither one of our boards would probably want to go that route. So we did ask them about applying a credit for those, for that. The other thing I should mention is that, like any other contract, not only does Danielle and Derek review contracts on the town side, I happen to review them on the school side. And then we get an attorney involved in certain instances. So this being something fairly new, it will be either your attorney or or the school district's attorney that will look at it, and then we'll worry about how the bill gets paid. So we'll also.
So we
share
are
that
considered the
cost.
client, correct?
We're the client.
So it says that
here on page
says,
6, though, it says on page 6, though, agreement, the fixed fee will be applied against the group net metering credit fees.
Correct.
So that
That's the
means-
sentence I was just gonna say.
Right.
So if the client enters into one or more group net metering agreement, the fixed fee will be applied against the group net metering credits described below, and then it explains it'll go over the first 4 years until the upfront fee is fully reimbursed.
Okay, but we're the client, it says CES shall invoice client for all group net metering credit fees owed. So does that mean that we're just getting the reduction and then we're having to pay them? How does that work?
So annually, typically what would happen on the town side is they anticipate a $5,000 per year revenue. They would then annually bill us for their 10% share. So they would pay, 500 would be their 10% share of the 5,000. So that's what they're referring to, is they would bill us for it. However, they're reducing their amount that they get until the credit is reimbursing that upfront fee.
So we're not gonna be sending them any money?
That's not the intent.
No.
No, don't say that's not the
That's,
intent.
but that's not what the language says.
And what I'm saying, what I wanted us to say is that we want to have this as a credit until that fee is paid off, and then we will work with our attorney to make sure that the language in their agreement satisfies that. So, I did briefly look at their agreement, but as I shared with Danielle, if this select board is not comfortable proceeding with this, then there's really no need for us to get an attorney and to go through all of the legalese to make sure that the language supports what our intent is. So right now, if the select board is comfortable with the concept of us doing this, then we would, and then the school board is as well, then we will work it out with one of our attorneys to do the contractual review and to make any language changes that are necessary to clarify the intent in which we will have a credit applied until that upfront payment is satisfied.
Well, I would be safe to say, from my point of view, is if there's a guarantee that we don't have to cut them a check, I would be happy with it. But that would have to be the guarantee.
Like you feel confident that's gonna be the case?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
And I think the other one is, how much money are we planning on saving? Because you said 5,000.
Yep, so on the town side, they're estimating 5,000 per year, so our portion under the normal agreement, the 10% once we get past the crediting, would be 4,500 per year for 20 years. And then the school is 13,500, because theirs would normally be.
Right, and that's the current, based upon current rates.
Yeah, that's the 10%.
Should rates go up, and then there's more of a delta, then there's more of a savings, and our income or revenue generation is higher.
Yep.
If the rate goes down, it can be lower, but at no time is it a negative. So there's really no risk,
Right.
for us, in this.
So if we get zero savings, like, what happens then?
It's-
Then we got
don't-
zero
we
in that
don't- We don't get
particular
any
year.
money.
Yeah.
I would tell you that the only out-of-pocket that I think we're gonna have here, regardless, is a legal review. I think that we can't escape. So I don't know what that might be. I'm sure it's gonna be about 2 hours worth of work for an attorney. Jim, maybe you would know better, but I think this is a 3-page contract,
Yeah,
if that.
it's not super long.
So, probably a couple of hours of work.
And seeing
Under
the schools
1,000.
got the majority of the
Depends on the
credits to
attorney.
pick up the bill.
So, right, Jim? Depends on the attorney. So,
Not on camera, right?
it says revenue share. So how would they get the money
So.
if we're not writing them a check?
So at the end of the year, when they calculate it all out, they essentially bill us for what it would be. They say it's gonna be this much. And then we get a check from the project developer for our portion, and the project developer sends the rest to them. But we get a audit report as well, showing the breakdown of the totals.
Where's the project developer in the contract? How does that work through?
That
Then-
would be only once we get a contract with, so the contract you're reviewing now is all through CES.
Right.
They would go out to RFP to connect with the individual project.
Yeah, because that's a third party that's not even in the contract.
Right, and Again, I just
It'd have to
wanted
be if you're gonna wanna get the revenue share cut.
We
back.
would,
No,
we
but-
would,
No,
that,
because that, whatever they, CES, whatever it is, right? They're gonna have, they say, okay, Goffstown's portion is here, developer's portion is here. We never get involved in that, if I understood what you said.
We're not technically involved in it in the sense that they do they issue all of those RFPs and they're doing.
That's what I'm saying, we don't really,
We're not involved in it.
at the end of the year, it's a pot of money.
Yes.
Yeah,
Goffstown gets their share, the developer gets his share.
yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yep,
And we have nothing to do with the developer.
that's correct.
Yeah, but we would
And that's the
have,
third-party person you're talking about.
right, we would have an agreement as well that results from the RFP. So the RFP process that they put together where we choose which project we want to participate in, there would be an agreement
There's
there.
gotta be an agreement for them to build it, I mean,
Right.
we agreed to.
To
the
say how
others.
many kilowatt hours. Yeah, so they come back with their RFP results and a recommendation saying, this is the project we think you should move forward with. And obviously, the town and school would have to pick the same project
Yeah,
in order for us to move forward.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the purpose of this presentation and tonight was to gauge the select board's interest in the concept of proceeding with this pending also school board concurrence, recognizing that the legal terms and making sure that both the school and the town are protected contractually would be done by one of our councils, and that would give peace of mind to the governing bodies that i's are dotted and t's are crossed in terms of what our obligations are, et cetera. But if this board and/or the school board says, yeah, we're not interested, then we won't go any further. So we did not, go very deep on this one, talking to lawyers and looking at contracts, very down and dirty on that stuff, because we didn't know where you're landing, and we don't know where the school board is gonna land.
So the school board hasn't voted
The
one way or
school board only gave me, anytime that I do anything like this, so when Danielle and Derek approached me about this, the purpose was that, hey, if we combine school and town, we have a considerable amount of consumption. I went to the school board at their last meeting and said, hey, this is the concept, and essentially, I shared with them just this one slide. They had about a 10-minute conversation about it, and they said, go ahead and do your more investigation and due diligence. We then met with this particular, your vendor, who you selected. So one of the questions they asked me was like, who is this vendor? And I said that the town did an RFP with regard to having a consultant who helps them with their energy spend, and they were satisfied with that. So the next step really is, does this board feel comfortable with it? And then after that, I would go back to the school board, let them know that, and then all of the nitty-gritty stuff, we would work through with our legal counsels, or legal counsel, whichever
And then
one we
would
select.
would we have an opportunity to see the finished product
Yes.
before it goes
Yeah,
forward?
you got it. Yep.
Do we need a motion, Derek, on this? or-
Yeah, so the motion would be to move forward with the review of the consulting agreement with attorney, town council, and then bring back a final one that can be signed, because at that point, then we would tell Competitive Energy to go out and put out the energy. Again, concurrence with the school board to actually put it out for bid.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Josh, seconded by Jim. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next up is the town administrator's report.
We should do that in the morning. That presentation.
So at tab 8, you have your consent agenda, employee status reports. At the fire department, you have a full-time firefighter receiving an associate's degree incentive per the CDA, a full-time firefighter that receives their paramedic license and paramedic differential per the CDA, a full-time firefighter that received their AEMT license and AEMT differential per the CBA, a per diem EMT, they're being moved to the new current per diem matrix, and then a per diem firefighter / EMT new hire, and then in Parks and Rec, an official 2, new hire.
Move to approve the consensus agenda as presented this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any discussion, questions? I have one. What was the story with the deputy chief? We have any answer on that yet?
And a conditional offer has been put out. I understand they're going back through background, and we should have.
He was cleared for background to start date January 26th.
Okay.
Scott Swin?
January 26th.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Approved?
At your
Okay.
next page,
Go.
Sorry. At your next page, you have assessor recommendation. This is the 2025 tax year report of timber cut and a timber tax warrant on map 6, lot 1-6-2. The warrant is in the amount of $107. The assessor recommends approval.
Make a motion to approve the assessor's recommendation as presented.
Yep, second.
Motion by Josh, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries.
The only other thing is I did provide an action matrix. It was not in your bound packet, but the departments did provide me with their updates on vehicles today. So you had that on your on the table when you came in this evening.
Okay. This is all old business.
Any questions on that?
No, but I know we do have some new business.
Yeah, we have new business.
What about the meeting schedule?
So a couple things. Also, let me go back to your agenda. The last item I think I had under Town Administrator's Report was 2026 draft warrant and 2026 proposed budget. So I will distribute the draft warrant to members.
Because we still have new business too, right?
Yeah, so I guess I'm still on the agenda under Town Administrator's Report. Regarding the town warrant, one thing that came up last week as we were preparing for the budget hearing on Thursday, we were reviewing the numbers that we had been providing to the budget committee throughout the budget process. And when we initially presented to the budget committee, we were comparing against our 2025 total appropriation. Our 2025 total appropriation included the CBA, which is something that we typically look at for comparison, but it also included the $350,000 deposit into the capital reserve fund from unassigned fund balance. So throughout the process, because we had that in as our base, we were overstating our base, and we were telling the budget committee, your operating budget is right now at a 5.3% increase. When we take that $350,000 out from last year, their increase on the operating budget is a little bit closer to 7%. I think it was 7.1%.
So we're short.
So the operating budget on a percentage basis is bigger than we had advised the budget committee. As soon as this came to light, I brought this information to the attention of the budget chair, and she scheduled a meeting for tomorrow night. Her question to me when Danielle and I met with her on Friday was, okay, how do we get back down to the 5.3% in that ballpark that we thought we were at? And that would be a cut of $470,000.
470, not 50,000?
Correct, 470,000, to get back to a percentage increase of 5.3. We're just
I
talking.
thought it was 5.4.
Well, so I told her to get back to 5.3, it's a $470,000 increase.
Okay.
So the solution that, talking with the budget chair, would be, the budget committee could cut the operating budget by $450,000 from reclamation funds. Currently in CIP, there is a budget of $1.6 million. If you cut $450,000 from that, it brings you back to the 2025 appropriation, which is $1,150,000. So we believe that that is the action that the budget committee is going to take during their meeting tomorrow night. Alternatively, what we also talked about is could the select board put forward an appropriation article to fund that $450,000? So it's not in the operating budget, rather you're giving the voters a separate chance to vote on that. Last year, the select board did include that on the warrant. It failed only by 75 votes, and I think the reason it failed is because we had additional language in there to say that those additional funds would go into default budget in the following year. So my recommendation, with the understanding that the budget committee is likely to cut $450,000 from road plan funds tomorrow night, is to add an article to fund $450,000 from new taxes, but don't include default language like you have in past years.
And we go ahead and take it out ourselves.
Yes.
I make a motion to do that.
I'll second that.
That sucks.
It does suck, but.
So why are we doing it?
Because
What's the guarantee that they're gonna go along with it?
I think we have to do it in good faith, Peter, because point of the matter is that the budget committee's been trying to get down to a 5% number.
Then don't take it out of the roads again. You're hitting the roads again. You wanna do something? Use the unassigned fund balance for that 450 and put the Packer on the ballot for it.
I thought we did that already.
No, the Packer's on there for unassigned fund balance.
Right.
So do the roads on the unassigned fund balance and put the Packer on the ballot. You can't keep cutting the road.
So I thought we put an article forth for the Packer to be out of the unassigned fund balance.
Exactly what I'm saying.
We did that.
What I'm saying is change it. Make it the roads out of the unassigned fund balance and put the Packer out there to be voted on.
But aren't we asking to put them on the unassigned fund balance here too?
No. No, this is, I think, right now you have three articles from unassigned fund balance. You have the fire apparatus,
Yes.
which is 350, you have the library, which is 50.
Yep.
And then you have the Packer, which is 430. So you have
Okay.
$830,000.
Right.
Looking at what we believe the town's total appropriation could be next year, plus the money that we have to collect for local and state school and county, you will drop, if you put an additional $450,000 from fund balance, you'll be below your floor of 12% for fund balance.
But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is move the Packer to a vote.
So I think
instead of the road project, that way the road project gets
Move a
guaranteed.
Packer to the vote with who?
To the town, the special article vote.
So you're saying to do that from new taxation
Right,
and the roads from unassigned fund balance?
right.
So that guarantees the road money and puts the Packer at risk instead of the other way around.
Right. You can't keep cutting the roads, you just can't keep doing it. That's $1 million in a year, in 2 years.
So here's my question amongst all of us. We all felt that the Packer was needed.
Yep.
So you're saying it's not needed?
But at the time, before there was a mistake, we thought we had the roads covered. Then we find a mistake, now we don't have the roads, now we're saying, oh, we screwed up, let's take it out of the roads again.
I think priority-wise, it does make sense to have the roads at a higher unassigned fund balance, but still, I think it's gonna be up to the voters to make the decision. They could vote both of them down.
Not if we don't give them an option.
Well,
So it's coming out of unassigned fund balance.
But they're both gonna be
On the
the
ballot.
warrant.
Sure, it'll be both on the
It-
ballot.
What we're talking about is which one comes from unassigned fund balance.
Right. What's your feeling, Rich? You're on the budget committee.
I know what their wishes are. We don't, it's kind of a wash in terms of dollar value, so we could do it either way. I think you make a good point that we keep cutting the roads. I don't know if it's wise to go back on that decision at this point.
It's almost $1 million in 2 years you've taken out of the roads.
Yep.
We're still doing what they want. We're just changing the way we fund it, that's all.
Changing the priority.
I think the roads are our priority.
well, the roads.
Well, that's what we're saying.
The roads
We
the
do
roads
have a-
are a higher priority. And, I mean, you're basically asking for people to increase their tax rate for what they want, period. Doesn't matter which one you want.
But that's what he's asking for.
How much total tax rate increase would it be per?
So, the number that we had, where the budget was, with the mistake, that I noted, the total budget with, again, so this hasn't been to public hearing, we don't know that this is going to be the budget committee's final budget.
Right.
But that plus the DPW CBA, which was the only other item that did not come from fund balance, that would be a tax rate of $7.66, and when you set the tax rate this fall, it was $7.02. So it'd be 64-cent increase. So it's a pretty substantial increase.
And that's cutting the 450 out of, or the 470.
No, that is how the budget committee saw it when they last met.
Okay.
What we're asking you to do is, whether it's the Packer or the road plan, is pull some of that money out of the operating budget, because again, we do want that operating budget. What the operating budget has are increased tipping fees that our default budget does not have. It has a lot of items that are in there that we desperately need the funds for.
I don't disagree one bit, but we can't keep cutting the road project. You can't do it. That's almost $1 million in 2 years.
But it's up to the town to let us know if they want that.
Well, then we're giving them that option.
Well, what you're saying is, like, here's the Packer truck, figure out if you want to increase. Everybody's going to immediately turn that down, but we all fought and said that the Packer truck was needed.
They're both on here.
They're both on here, I get that, but you're saying, like, one is unassigned fund balance because you think it's better that we do it out of there and it gets funded. But don't we think that the town, if they really want the roads squared away, they'd be willing to take the increase in the tax rate?
You're taking, yeah.
I'm asking an honest question.
Do you think they want their trash picked up? They'll vote on the Packer? There's two things that, the two biggest complaints, right?
Sure.
Three. Taxes, roads, trash. That's what the town looked at. We already took nearly $500,000 last year out of the roads. Now you want to do it again this year.
It's not that I want to do it, Peter, that's not what I'm saying. But we fought to get the Packer truck in the first place on the unassigned fund balance out of there because much of the discussion to have in the budget committee is that, at least in some of the parties that were there, and you're there, Richard, is that there's 4 trucks. Like, do you need 4 trucks? It's like, yeah, we have to have 4 trucks because they're breaking down all the time. So, like, right now, we're basically saying, well, we're going to have to forego it, and whatever happens, happens.
No, we're doing the same thing. We're just funding it a different way. The Packer could still be defeated.
Right, so could the road.
That's what I'm saying. So let's use the roads out of the unassigned fund balance, right? Because it stands a better chance of passing. You can't keep kicking that can down the road. I don't think it's for dollar, the budget committee's looking at a dollar value. I think Richard could sell that as, look at, this is a dollar swap, that's all it is. We think the roads are more important.
I don't disagree with that, Peter. I guess my question is like, we've already issued a motion on one article before that was on unassigned. Can it be modified?
You can modify it this evening, but tonight is your last chance for appropriation articles and indicating if there's any offsetting revenue.
The additional funding that was on the warrant last year for the road plan, was that not recommended by the budget committee?
Correct.
Okay. To your point, there is no guarantee that they recommend this article or any one of our articles. That being said, I'll still make a motion that we modify the prior warrant article that we had put forward to remove the unassigned fund balance language and change the Packer truck.
Well, we have to modify this motion first, Richard, which I think is...
I think we should start with the one that we've already done.
But we already made a motion, you seconded, so we have to modify this motion
And
first.
what Richard's doing is he's bringing up for reconsideration our vote on the Packer coming out of unassigned fund balance. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay. That's what Rich is bringing up.
But we have a now nested motion. I just want to make sure that we're,
No, Richard's bringing that up, okay? We're gonna table the other motion,
I'm happy to table my motion.
okay? So Richard says to bring a reconsideration of of using the Packer, unassigned fund balance for the Packer.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, go ahead.
Wait, what am I doing now?
Now you wanna put the road,
I'd like to bring my motion back to the table.
okay? Which
Back to
was?
being on the table. I'd like to make a motion to have the road plan modified, or the amount that we're asking in the budget to be reduced by $450,000, and take that $450,000 and put it as a special warrant article that to be funded for the road plan on reclamation for $450,000
Out of unassigned fund
out of
balance.
unassigned fund balance.
Is that correct, Adam? I mean, Derek,
Yes.
you got it? Jim seconded that?
Did-
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And now do we need to make another motion for the Packer?
Yes, the Packer from new tax collection, so it would be from basically an article to appropriate $430,000 for the Packer.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'll make that motion that we appropriate
Seconded by Richard.
430 or 50?
Yeah,
430.
430.
Any further, any
From
discussion?
new taxation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Sorry about that, Derek, but.
No, that's fine. Again, I apologize. When we were before the Budget Committee, I think the Budget Committee probably cut about 100 detail lines, and there were numbers flying all over. So as soon as I found the issue, we wanted to bring it to their attention.
Well, I just think it was important that the road plan. Okay, next, what else do we have?
So the other item is, as part of your regular meeting schedule that was drafted in the spring, we had scheduled a meeting for Monday, January 19th. The purpose of that meeting was to go over any petition articles that are received and have petitioners present. As was pointed out to me a couple of weeks ago, that is actually a holiday. That is Civil Rights Day. So the request would be to move that meeting to Tuesday, January 20th at 6 p.m. and invite the two lead petitioners to come in so that they can explain their petition articles, and then the board can make recommendations on those. And then that would also be your opportunity to make final recommendations on the Budget Committee's operating budget.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries.
Thank you.
Derek, what was this one all in here?
So connected to the draft warrant, you have the two petition articles that we received. The first was a petition to raise the elderly income limit on elderly exemptions. The town modified the elderly exemption in 2023 when the revaluation was done. This is just looking to change the limit of the incomes for whether it's single or a combined income to show for the impact of inflation has had since 2023. And then a second petition that was received this morning has to deal with fund balance limitation and placing that on the town. I did just get word from the town clerk that the supervisor of the checklist did certify there are enough signatures on that. We have not had a chance to run the language that was submitted past the town attorney to see what effect this actually would have on town operations, but I hope to have that answer for you when you get a presentation on that next week.
Okay. New business. Josh, you had some?
Well, I had just brought up in the email that I sent to us about collection of one of the properties that had a lien on it. And I think you answered my question on that, Derek, which is basically whoever takes over the property will be responsible for that at that point in time.
I'm not sure which.
I'm talking about the one, the arena, not the sportsplex.
So that lien has been paid, the back liens on that one have been paid in full, so that one is no longer up for taking for tax deed.
Okay.
That property.
So, I guess there was a bond on the property?
There's a bond on the property to get to one of the back lots. I think what my response to you on that matter was the bonding of off-site improvements for a property is something that's overseen by the planning board that's in statute. I don't know, did the planning board have specific concerns about that outstanding?
They were concerned that if the property got sold, we wouldn't ever be able to get those improvements finished and the bond wouldn't be fulfilled. I guess it was some oversight. That was one of the discussions that came up.
Okay, I can reach out to Scott and get a better understanding. Was Scott at that?
Scott was at the planning.
I can touch base with Scott on that and see if we need to address those concerns and come back and report to us.
Yeah, I meant to bring it up last meeting.
I have two things. One is the paycheck fiasco this week. Maybe you can shed some light.
Yes, so this was definitely, the payroll was definitely a challenge last week. The first payroll of the year is always a challenge where we are doing all of our accrual renewals. One of the biggest challenges that was presented to us is the new no taxes on overtime law that was in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We only received information from the IRS in the last weeks of December on how that would be administered in 2026, so we had to rewrite quite a few of our OT pay codes. Most of our overtime is not what is considered FLSA overtime. It's actually overtime that goes beyond the federal requirements. It's more generous than, so we still do need to pay taxes on those. So we did get that fixed. The changes, so what happened was the bank file for last week's paycheck did not go to the bank until late on the day on Thursday. So some employees got it a lot later than they're used to receiving it. So what we did internally to change process is if we have anything end of the day on Wednesday that the bank file is not sent in and checks are not printed and ready to go first thing Thursday morning, I will be alerted to that, and then we're basically going to put a halt on everything else so that we can get that bank file out and prioritize that, but also to get better communication to not only the department heads who we had informed that this payroll was taking a little bit longer, but also to all employees.
Is there any advantage or disadvantage to us using a company to do that payroll?
No, because the complexities that we have with our CBAs, we have 4 CBAs and a 5th non-union. Everyone has different rules for OT, what goes into OT. Everyone has, so you're still going to have internally somebody that's going to have to check all the time cards again, or all the time data from the departments against those contracts to make sure we're complying with those.
And, okay, so you've got something in the works to help fix that problem?
Yep.
Number 2 is, of course, like you, I got questions about the website today and what we're doing to bring that up.
So I received some questions today about the deliberative session and the budget hearing. Those items were on our website in the website calendar as well as the agenda center. The individual that reached out to me, I pointed out how they could find them. The individual was not happy when they searched on calendar that the first results sent them to the library calendar. We are working with our website company to see if we can force it to the meeting calendar. Additionally, we posted news flashes, so anyone that signed up to the RSS feed or anyone that's on that homepage, in addition to the calendar, in addition to the agenda and meetings, it's now a news flash for the budget hearing and for the supervisor, the checklist which you read earlier this evening. And then we'll be putting up the notice for the deliberative session once the hearings are done.
Okay. One more thing. Who is taking Catherine's place?
So we have had an open application period. We've gotten quite a few applications. That application process, we're going to be doing our initial review and interviews. We stated a soft close Friday, the 16th. So this Friday, we're going to gather everything that we got up, schedule interviews, and start going through that process.
Is there anything for non-public?
Not this evening.
Mark?
And last but not least, our pay stipend. We work hard enough, we pay people in this town. I'm looking to get that stipend back.
Want to do a warrant article?
Huh?
Through a warrant article?
Why does it have to be a warrant article?
It says
Oh.
select
It
board
says-
warrant
it
article
says
cost for
warrant.
stipends.
Well, that's somebody recommended that then.
Yeah, I'm not looking at the warrant article, because if we put that in as a warrant article, it could fail and we'd never get the money back again. I want it, it has tax impact of one penny. If it's a $416,000 house, medium house impact, it's $4.40.
Go ahead, Derek.
So I think as a board, if the majority of the board feels that you want to move forward with this, you have a couple of different options. You could go to the budget hearing on Thursday, advocate for the budget committee to add these funds back into the proposed budget, and then it goes to deliberative session. Alternatively, if they do not add it back in, you can seek to amend the budget at the deliberative session to add it in. Ultimately, as you've done in 2025, the select board under RSA 32 does have the ability to transfer funds, transfer approved appropriations. I would caution you about doing budget transfers for stipends. We have heard from many people at the budget committee meetings about the increases that we're seeing right now with the vote that you took and the vote that we anticipated at budget committee. The town's operating budget is still a 5% increase, and it's going to have a tax impact. So to do budget transfers for elected official stipends that were not funded, I think politically that can really hurt this.
And what happened with the stipends for the ballot people?
So for the moderator and the supervisor of the checklist, the budget committee left those in the operating budget.
So I would have to say that this is, that them cutting the select boards is politically motivated.
I'm not sure that they cut it, because we never put it back in.
Well, it should have been put back in.
We didn't put it back in. I just want to be very clear with you.
No, you're right, we didn't put it in. I think it's wrong. I think I think we need to cut some money out of the budget. We can cut stipends for everybody else. Town clerk, everybody else, cut some more money out of the budget. How would you feel about that? Nobody wants that. So a political statement is what that is.
Right, but nobody on the budget committee made that
That's
political.
fine. You know what?
I'm just saying.
It doesn't
like-
matter to me because I'm gonna be gone, but it's not right. This board does more work than any other board.
I'm not debating.
Yes, you are.
No.
Because you don't agree with it.
Peter, what I'm saying is, for factual reference, we didn't put it back in the
I
budget.
understand.
Nobody on the budget committee from all the budget meetings that I watched so far this year cut it out of this budget for the supervisor, the checklist, nor for the town clerk.
But they did in the past.
Right, they did take the stipends out of sewer commission and several other places. My understanding is the school board actually voted to remove the stipends out of their area. So I just think that we should be cognizant of that and be.
It doesn't matter to me.
It should matter to all of us.
You know, I think it's terrible. I think that the amount of work that's required by law for this board and not to be compensated for it is wrong. Okay? Those people can't be held liable for anything. Right? I've had warrants come or things come to my house from the sheriff because of things that have happened in the town. Right?
Understood, Peter.
You know, and that's a liability on me. Of course, the town covers it all the time, but still, that's a liability on me and on the rest of you.
Agree.
And to say that, oh, you don't deserve your piddly stipend is wrong, you know? And the people in the budget committee who decided to make those decisions last year did it politically, were politically motivated, and that was it, okay? I get to say that, because I'm leaving. And that was wrong, they're wrong, and if they can't stand up to the right thing, that's fine too. I hope everybody understands that. Now, can you tell me what happened with the employees, non-union employees increases?
So there is no matrix adjustment, so we would maintain the current matrix. But right now, the operating budget does have steps for those employees that would be eligible, and it would be a full year. So what we would do is, as we get through town meeting, we see the budget's adopted, we would actually go do a look back for those employees.
But they didn't get their adjustments?
So they get a step.
But they didn't get their COLA adjustment?
Correct.
Yeah, none.
I would advocate right now for the non-union employees in this town to form a union, because then it wouldn't happen. They should form a union, because then somebody like that, something like that can't happen to them. Why should everybody else get their raises and not the non-union people? They should form a union. There, I said my piece, that's, anything else, anybody else? Motion?
I just want to be clear on Selectman or Vice Chairman Lemay's. Tonight is the last night that you can put forward a separate appropriation article.
Correct.
If you want to advocate at the budget hearing or seek to amend the budget committee's budget at deliberative, you can still do that, but if you're going to have a separate article, tonight is the last night to make that decision.
Is that what you want to do?
Yes.
All right, Mark. I will make a motion to put forward a warrant article in the amount of $29,322.57 to fund select board stipends for the year of 2026.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion, questions? On fit?
What about the sewer and the other ones that are, you don't have any say in that?
So, the sewer commission is,
And same principles apply, I suppose.
yes, but you don't get to make appropriations on their budget, so you only get to put forward appropriations on the town's budget.
They can do it anyway, so, no.
Okay, all right, okay.
All in favor?
So what was the motion again, I'm sorry?
To put a special article in
Put
for
a
the
special
selectmen's.
article?
Yeah.
Motion by Mark, seconded, or motion by Richard, seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Motion, Mark?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Jim, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. I'm out.
Thank you.